No way, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Good morning, good morning. Oh, this is No Way Jose. You're watching The Morning Dump, my morning show series, where it's more of a research, relaxed environment. We go through articles, threads. Most of the time, it'll be the first time I'm going through it, so we'll be going through it together, kind of working out some of this information as it goes. Some of it will be current events, some of it won't. Generally just speaking, it's just going to be whatever catches my ear. And today that's probably going to be JFK, OKC, and Dutroux. And there is some current events. I mean, every now and then, this show's a little bit of a current event show. It's just a matter if there's something interesting going on. And there was one today. So we have Tyler in the chat. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, say what now? Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving, Jose. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys as well. I probably won't be doing really anything for Thanksgiving, but I hope you guys have a great one. Thanksgiving has been kind of a bummer time for our family over the past years. I don't know. I've said this on the show, but my wife's both her siblings died right around Thanksgiving, and her mom just died like less than a month ago, and it's right before Thanksgiving. So it's just one of those things that's Thanksgiving's just been kind of a black spot for our family. But I dig it. I like getting stoned and eating Thanksgiving food, but it brings up bad memories for the rest of the family. So here we are. Hope you guys are having fun though. So you see you guys making a tower in the chat. That is very nice of you guys. Everyone's saying sup yo. Everyone's checking into the chat. I hope you guys are having a great one. Man, I'm seeing a lot of people from the Twitter. I just for the first time linked this to my Twitter. So from now on, I am no longer streaming this to the Tower Gang Twitter or the Tower Gang YouTube. This is all. I have 3 places it's going. It's going to the No Way Jose YouTube channel, the No Way Jose Rumble channel, and it's going to my Twitter. So that might be a better way too with the Twitter. This is my first time really fooling with it. If you guys do want to drop like links or things of that of the like, that might be the place to do it, because I think you can do comments on those. So that way, you can during the show, you could even put in the chat like, "Hey, I left a message," because I don't know if if it shows them or what, especially if it's a link. But that might be a good way to do that. So just keep that in mind, throwing that out there. Been a while since I've been able to tune in live. Good morning, Jose in chat. Good morning, Pistolero. This is one of my patrons. How are you doing, friend? Glad to have you here. Let's while we wait for more people to roll in, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here and remind you guys that today's episode was brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor burn, the irritation, and the ingrown hairs you get from those multi-blade cartridges, then this is the way to go. Return the traditional shave. You can shave just like your grandpa used to. Whether you're shaving your whole face or just edging with your beard, the single blades give you a barber-grade shave for a fraction of the price. The standard issue has the one traditional safety razor pictured here and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. That's put you out about $75. The estimate's supposed to be about a year, but let's be real. I've barely put a dent in it. It really depends on how frequently you shave. If you're someone shaving the regular, that may not cut it for you. Like if you're shaving every single day, but even then, it's kind of close. But if you are someone who shaves every single day, I would recommend maybe considering the Quarter Shave Club. That puts you about 25 cents per replacement blade. He's also got shave lathers, shave soaps, 3-in-1 body hair and face soap. This is a COVID mandate refusing company. This was born out of refusing the mandate. Nadeau got the option between leaving the military or getting the poke, and he chose to get out of the military and create this company. So support those who support our values and support us. So he's over here supporting me. If you want to get a product out of your support for me, then this is a good way to go. I mean, he is a sponsor, so this is a roundabout way that you can support the show and get a product out of it. So there you go. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. All right, let's get back in here, guys. Check in with you. See, it says message from X. See, that's what I mean. I think that's what I'm talking about. Message from X. What does that even mean? I thought maybe you sent me something. I looked and I don't see any reply. All right, whatever. Let's keep it moving. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving. Hope your wife and family have a good one, Jose. Yeah, to all you guys as well. So, yeah, that's from X. That's weird. I'm not seeing it. That's weird. Maybe it's just being slow. Let me go. Sorry, guys. You're seeing me work through technical difficulties. Do I actually have to? Weird. I don't see any sort of comment on it. Weird. All right. Well, I don't. Oh no. All right. Well, I went on X to look at it, and I did not see. Couldn't find the comment. Unless he's just messing. Are you messing with me, Tyler? Did you literally just say message from X? Oh, sorry. I was just testing it. Okay. All right. I didn't get a notification though. That's weird. So I don't know, maybe it isn't the greatest way to go about sending me information. I would highly recommend Rumble or YouTube. I know everyone likes to push to X, but I don't know. I think it's a little overrated. I mean, like, shit, like these numbers are all made up. Like, let's be real. But all right, guys, let's get into content for the day. Here's one I found, like, literally, this is probably the only real current event thing that we have for the day, but I found this, like, right before we were getting ready to start, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Rothschild found dead after Hollywood Hills blaze. Will Rothschild, identified by neighbors as a member of the Rothschild family, was found deceased after a fire at his home in the Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles. The incident occurred on Wednesday, and firefighters extinguished the blaze. Authorities are currently investigating the cause of the fire and death. So, I mean, obviously all we know is a fire, and it's a Rothschild, but I do think it's worth mentioning, just because that's bizarre. That's just, I don't know, a house fire, a little bit of a fishy way, but I mean, I don't know, fires happen. There might be nothing going on here, but it was a little wild. A Rothschild bit the dust. So, I don't know, maybe if there's any people out there, intrepid researchers, maybe keep an eye on that one. I wouldn't be surprised if more comes out. Because, yeah, just a fire. I don't know. You would think, I don't know how often people actually die in fires. Like, I mean, like in house fires, I would feel like usually you'd be able to get out before he completely, overtakes it. But I don't know. I don't know the circumstances. It just seems a little fishy. Just saying, this is a second Rothschild in a year. So I don't know. Could just be complete happenstance. People do die. Rothschilds die. So it is what it is. But I just thought that was interesting. I just wanted to throw that out there. So maybe, just maybe, keep an eye of it. Oh, there we go. They die of carbon monoxide if they're sleeping. Okay, there you go. That's actually a good point. Because I was like, in my head, I'm like, I felt like if my house ever caught on fire, at a certain point, you would wake up and just go like, oh crap, I feel heat, I smell smoke, I like something, unless you're like completely zonked out of your mind on some sort of drugs or something, which that's always a possibility. I would think you would most times, unless you have some sort of weirdly like the layout of your house is bizarre or something. I don't know. I mean, most houses have it at least multiple doors to get in and out. I mean, you got windows. I just would think it would. I don't know. I just would be blown away if if my house caught on fire, if I somehow died from it, because it's like I could feel like I have like a million places I could get out of here. So I don't know. Maybe, but whatever. People do die. So. It is what it is. All right, here is another one from you guys. You guys recommend this one, and I think I know why. This is from the Tower Gang Telegram. Drake claims Universal Music and Spotify artificially inflated Kendrick Lamar's numbers for Not Like Us diss track. I'm not going to read this whole article because, frankly, I mean, I don't really care that much, and I don't think you guys do either. Aside from just the headline, I mean, this isn't like a gee whiz information you store in your long term memory. This is just an aside. You're like, oh yeah, he said this. You can forget about this in a month and it won't matter. But it is just kind of funny. It seems like a cope. I would say that he might. To be fair, he may have some sort of there may be something to that. But I will say, obviously, this isn't scientific. This is anecdotal. This is just complete vibes. But I know I was fairly invested in that diss back and forth thing. I thought it was pretty damn good. And I'm not someone who gets interested in those sort of things. So just the fact it brought in someone like me would think there's quite an organic component to this. And let's be real. Anyone listen to Not Like Us, that thing fucking slapped. And it was like such a bold statement of what it was making. It was essentially accusing Drake of being a pedophile and his friends and saying he runs in shady groups. So it was a pretty wild thing out there. And I felt like, and me and Austin on Already Dead talked about this quite a few times, there was some more sinister undertones and implications to be taken away from some of the things in this. So yeah, I mean, I just think I think it was pretty genuine. I mean, maybe there are. I mean, anytime you're dealing with any sort of large artist or large entity, I do think sometimes the numbers are fudged in one way or another, depending on what platform you're talking about. But I mean, I think if his numbers were fudged, I'd say Drake's were also fudged as well. So they're on equal ground in fudging, if that makes sense. So. Let's be real. This is Cope. So I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to back away from it now. Be like, oh yeah, that wasn't really such a deep cut. You calling me a pedophile. But yeah, I know that's my take on it. Here we go. From 60. Modern houses go up in like 20 minutes, and they're IDLH environments after like 6 minutes. I was a fighter in a medium-sized city. All right, I didn't know that. In 20 minutes, that seems inconceivable. What I guess it depends on, maybe I know a lot of places around the country build their houses differently depending on where they're at. So, I mean, you got different architectural styles all over the place, but like, I don't know. I mean, are you saying they were fudging each other? Says Tyler. No, but I do think there was a lot of fudging going around. I mean, this is Universal Music Group. This is I believe this is the same exact one Diddy was connected with. So these are the same players above these guys. So, anyways. But yeah, I struggle to believe a house would go up in 20 minutes, but I guess maybe I'll take your word for it. Couches equal 5 gallons of gas. That is true. I have burnt my couches before, thrown them in like a fire in the backyard. They do go up quick. I don't know. I mean, I guess so. That just seems, from all the fires I've made in my backyard, which is a many fires, I struggle to believe a house would go up in 20 minutes, but I could be wrong. And maybe it's dependent on where you're at. Cause I mean, I don't know, like here in Florida, we got lots of stucco. And so like not a lot of, which I don't even know if stucco is even flammable. I would assume the material probably doesn't really catch well. I mean, a lot of the material at my house wouldn't really catch too well. So I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass. You would know better than I would. But anyways, all right. What else do we have? All right, let's get into the JFK. Now, this recently, it was the 61st anniversary of JFK's getting popped. We get our buddy Matt Crumpton of the Solving JFK podcast. He made a pretty dope thread. I haven't really had a chance to go through it. I've had him on my show, though, so it's probably recapping a lot of the... I did it, for those who aren't aware, I did a JFK series with Matt a while back. So go to, if you do want to look into that, go to my playlists and just look up JFK. It'll be a picture of a JFK for the thumbnail, and that, I think, might even be actually this picture right here. So you can go see my series with Matt Crumpton, or you can go check out his Solving JFK podcast. So it just really depends on how you want to go into it. His Solving JFK podcast is super duper duper ridiculously thorough. I've listened to a bunch of it. I have not watched all of it because it's just, frankly, it's too much to keep up to. But if you're like a super nerd who's super duper into it, And you definitely go check that out. I mean, obviously, then there's all going to be like videos here and there that you can check out, that, you know, depending on what you're trying to figure out. But point being, it's a great source for checking out JFK stuff. But let's go through this thread from my buddy Matt. And I don't know if I mentioned, he was also on Tinfoil Hat recently. I believe it's the most recent episode of Tinfoil Hat at this point in time. So I think that might be his first appearance. So congrats on that, Matt. That's dope. I mean, he's been doing a lot of great things lately. I think he made a book. I mean, he's been doing a lot of stuff. He's been cutting it up. So, you know, good on you. He's killing it. All right. Today is the 61st anniversary of the JFK assassination. Obviously not today. It's a few days ago. While the goal of this podcast is to articulate the arguments of both official story defenders and critics, I cannot unlearn the things I already know. These are my top 10 findings when it comes to the big questions of the JFK assassination after 2 seasons of solving JFK. Number 1, was Oswald on the 6th floor when the shots were fired? No. The only witness to identify Oswald, Howard Brennan, failed to identify him at the police lineup before later changing his mind to the Warren Commission. Multiple witnesses saw Oswald on the 1st or 2nd floor eating his lunch. Oswald says he was on the 1st floor. Victoria Adams and Sandra Stiles were in the stairwell immediately after the shots were fired, when Oswald was supposed to be running down the stairs to get to the 2nd floor break room. Adams and Stiles did not hear or see Oswald. Also, Arnold Rowland says he saw a rifle in the 6th floor window at 12:15, but Carolyn Arnold said she saw Oswald at 12:25 on the 1st floor, or 12:15 if you believe the FBI report, and not Arnold. I do remember, I recall us going quite a bit into this on our series, so you can look into that more. Number 2, did Oswald bring a gun into the school book depository building? Probably not. The official story is that Oswald took the rifle to work with Buell Wesley Frazier in a paper bag and told him it was curtain rods. But Frazier described how Oswald walked with a paper bag under his arm, which would not be possible with a disassembled Carcano. Further, Frazier says he measured the space on the back seat where Oswald placed the curtain rods, and that space is too short to be a rifle. Oswald denied having curtain rods or needing curtain rods. When we add in the fact that Frazier was taken into custody and given polygraph examination on the night of the assassination, it's possible that his curtain rod story was fabricated. The problem with this argument is that Frazier's sister also says she saw Oswald with the curtain rods package when Oswald came to their house to get a ride to work. But Frazier's mom said she did not see it, and the layout of the Frazier home was such that Frazier's sister would not have been able to see it from where she said she was standing. Okay, so there's there's a layout of it, so I guess we can get an idea of what he means there. I am not digging into that. I'll take his word for that. Once again, go dig into his series or mine, I guess depending on how in-depth you want to go to dig more into that. 3, could Oswald have fired those shots in the allotted time under those conditions? Almost certainly not. The sniper's nest was on the 6th floor. It would be easy for anyone to make one shot because it was not very far away. However, the fact that the vehicle was moving and a bolt-action rifle was used, combined with the Zapruder film serving as a timer for how long the shots lasted, it would have been very difficult, but not impossible, to make the shots Oswald is accused of. The Warren Report and CBS both used some of the best shooters in the world for their tests with minimal success. But assuming that the second 2 shots in close succession are not faster than 1.7 seconds, it is possible that an expert could have made the shots. But Oswald had an extremely poor score on his last Marine shooting test in 1959. He had another shooting test that was better, but not great. I do want to comment on that real quick. I believe I even remember when I had Matt on the show, we did talk about this a little bit. But this point right here, and you know, I think I actually forever ago had either one or both or the other of the Biting the Bullets guys, Luke and Typo. And we, for some reason, we were talking about this, and just the idea of that, like, marksman training in the military is generally a fucking joke. So now this was obviously in 1959, so I have no idea what was going on there, what the standards were. I can tell you from my 11 years in active duty that they changed up the way they scored it and how they went about doing it multiple times. So it's not like a consistent, like, you know, thing for every branch, or even consistent throughout time or anything. So even just me in one branch of the military for around a decade, there were multiple different ways they went about scoring these. I've also failed and gotten marksman. So, I mean, just saying. And I'm not saying I'm a bad or a good shot. I feel like I'm okay. But this is the nature of these military tests. They're kind of a joke. I mean, sometimes it's not at all uncommon for people to shoot the wrong target. It's not all uncommon for the instructors to clearly fake to like add points for you just because they're trying to get you to qualify or whatever. There is all sorts of all over the place. It's just a matter of you can shoot great one day and shoot bad another. So point being, I don't know how much people like to bring this up. I think it's kind of a little bit of an appeal to authority in a sense, because people have this idea of the military and being a profession of arms or whatever, and that, guns being a big part of it. But really, that's not always the case. I mean, granted, Oswald said this was a 1959 in the Marines, so you would presume that this stereotype that I just alluded to a second ago is more accurate than in the Marines in 1959. But I don't know that. I don't know that like how they're going about scoring, if it's worth a damn or anything. But yeah, that's a little bit of a, I don't know. It doesn't really mean much. Oswald's peers in the military said that he was not a good shooter. Most of all, there is no evidence in the record that Oswald had any practice with the rifle in advance of the assassination. With a bolt-action rifle that was a defective scope, he would need all the practice he could get. 4 were shots fired at JFK from the front. Yes, there are 5 witnesses who either saw a puff of smoke or flash of light from the grassy knoll at the time the shots were fired. Okay, so he comes to the conclusion that this was fired. Okay, these include the 4 railroad workers on the overpass and Lee Bowers, who was in the railroad tower. We also have Ed Hoffman, who claims to have seen the shots from the grassy knoll. A person posing as a Secret Service agent with a badge was at the top of the grassy knoll immediately after the shots were fired. This person is unaccounted for and was possibly involved. A large crowd of people ran towards the grassy knoll after the shots. Numerous witnesses said the shots came from the grassy knoll. Many said shots came from the depository too. Both are likely rights. The medical evidence further supports a shot from the front. Dr. Gary Aguilar compiled a list of 43 medical professionals whose first statement on JFK's head wound was that there was a large wound in the right rear of the president's head. 8 Parkland doctors, including the chief of neurosurgery, said that JFK's cerebellum was damaged. This damaged cerebellum was also noted by autopsy photographer John Stringer. If the doctors and Stringer are correct, the shot would have to come from the right front, aka the grassy knoll. Further, the motorcycle police who were to the left and behind the president were covered in blood and brain matter. The officer in the back left only had blood and brain on the left side of his uniform and helmet because he was in the shadow of the other motorcycle cop. And remember, Jackie reached for a piece of JFK's skull on the back of the car. It went behind JFK because the shot came from the front. 5. Is CE-399 the single bullet? Absolutely not. Bardell Odom is the FBI agent who the FBI said first showed the bullet to O.P. Wright and Daryl Tomlinson, the ones who were said to have found it first. But Odom denied ever possessing CE-399, which, if you haven't put it together through context clues, that's just what they named the theoretical bullet that shot him or whatever. So, the idea of like the single bullet theory or whatever, and this is the bullet. Supposedly, that's the claim. And that's what they call it, CE-399. So I'm just assuming that's how they label these things in investigations. All right. Which means the FBI fabricated evidence regarding their investigation into it. The condition of CE-399 is pristine for it to have passed through JFK and hit Governor Connolly's rib, then wrist, then femur. The HSCA conducted tests on Carcano bullets, and CE-399 looks exactly like the bullet fired into a bale of cotton, as opposed to the mangled bullet fired at a human cadaver's wrist. So keep in mind, let me reiterate what that is expressing there. They ran tests on firing a bullet into cotton, and then they also ran tests on firing it through a wrist, your wrist, probably one of the smallest areas you can. And in the wrist shot, it was mangled. In the cotton one, it looked like CE-399, which was supposed to have gone through JFK, gone through another person's rib, gone through their wrist, and then their femur. And we're to presume that this bullet somehow did all of this and, stayed in pretty damn good condition. Seems a little far-fetched to me. I mean, maybe theoretically there's some magical way that could be possible, but it doesn't seem very likely to me. There were bullet fragments recovered from Connolly's body. Those fragments do not fit anywhere on CE-399. So where did they come from on the bullet? Hint, the fragments are not from CE-399. Finally, Dr. Shaw said the bullet was still in Connolly's thigh until around 4 p.m. when CE-399 was supposedly found around 1 p.m. All right, let's pop over to chat, see what you guys have to say. I also did want to let you guys know, I talked on yesterday that I swapped over my podcast hosts, and I kind of warned you guys that there might be an issue, and I was right. It's like I predicted it, like I knew it was going to happen. My shit's fucked right now, guys. I'm going to try to figure it out. I don't know when it will be fixed, but there will probably be, for those who do like to listen to the audio podcast side of it, the audio side of things, you probably get quite a few dumps here this weekend. Essentially, I swapped over podcast hosts. I'm not going to bore you with all the technical details because I don't even completely understand them because I'm a tech retard. But essentially, try to swap over, and I'm at this like crossroads where I need to figure out how to. Because essentially, what happened is now I fucked up the distribution, and essentially, say for example, a good example would be Spotify. If you go to Spotify right now and you search "No Way Jose" and typed in correctly or whatever, and hit search, two identical profiles will show up. Both of them with all of the podcasts, but one of them only has all the reviews that I've had before. So that one has all the history. It's the one that you guys have been using. And essentially when I made a new host, it accidentally created a whole other profile. So I think I fucked up the distribution to where I accidentally made them like reset up new profiles for distribution as opposed to, piggybacking off the previous one and continuing. So I know I am at a crossroads where I know how to put it back the way it was, but I want to get on this host because there are some perks with this one. So I don't know. Either way, it'll get figured out. Whether I go back to the old way I was doing it, or I figure out this other one. You guys will have your audio podcast soon. I'm just letting you guys know. I'm sorry. I'm fucking retarded. It is what it is. I mean, if there's any tech people out there that have any time the next few days, I might need some help, but I think I can. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of blindly try to figure it out on my own. All right, solving JFK is this podcast, says Tyler. Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, from Bruta Baker TV. Happy Thanksgiving to you. How can a bullet go through two people and shatter a radius and come out unblemished? Case closed. Bullets don't take left turns too. Oswald made it like a mile plus in 4 minutes in the Warren Commission timeline too, I'm pretty sure. In 4 minutes. That's a Olympic level mile. Yep. L.A. Marzulli just did a good one about a guy who claims to have been the shooter, probably fake and gay, but the spot by the road he claims to have shot from line up with the way Kennedy goes back into. I don't know. I've heard that name before, but I don't really know who he is. So I don't know. I don't know anything about that one. Could be interesting. I don't know. 150 plus dead witnesses related to that case too. Shout out to Richard Belzer. 150? That seems excessive. If you have any sources on that, send it over to me. Because that is kind of an area I always find interesting in all the suspicious deaths. So I know there's like 25 plus in the Dutroux one, which we're going to get at the last probably half hour of the show. We will be continuing our read of the article we read last episode. So a lot of former military I've shot with claim a shot expert and they make an ass of themselves. Yeah, for real. Exactly. Like and I'm not even saying I didn't shoot expert. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying it's kind of like hit or miss. You have bad days, you have good days. I mean, also the standards change. So there's so many different factors going on that trying to rely on like, oh, he's a marksman. He could fucking shoot the wings off a fly because he got a marksman in the military. It's like that. I don't know, maybe, but I not really. I don't know. If anything, I'd say your average gun guy is probably a better shot than your average military member. So. Although I guess that's a little bit unfair because we're talking about someone who's into guns. But I'm just saying it's not really this crazy culture of guns like people think it is. Although I was Air Force, so I mean I might be a little bit off. Also, I was a mechanic, so it really does depend on. But that's kind of my point. It depends on what you're doing. Because in the Army, there's mechanics too. So like if you're a fucking mechanic on a helicopter in the Army, like how much of a precedence are they putting on your ability to shoot? I don't know. I mean. aside from like a pride thing because we're army. I mean, I don't. It's just kind of, if anything, it's a waste of time to really teach that guy to shoot too much. Yeah, I was Navy. Most of the dudes just shot twice a year. Yeah, and where I was at, I only shot a couple times. So because we would only, I want to say initially it was like it was something like a once a year or something, and then they changed it to where like if you're going to deploy. So that's why I've only shot a couple times when I was in. But all right, let's get back into this. Was Oswald a false defector to the USSR? Yes. Oswald left the Marines early based on a bogus story that he needed to help his mom. Oswald's mother appears to have been aware that he was going to the Soviet Union before he went there. He even applied to Albert Schweitzer College, which was funded by CIA asset Percival Brundage. Oswald goes to Helsinki, Finland to apply for a Soviet visa. This happened to be the only place in the world where he could get a Soviet visa in just a day. Oswald stayed at the fanciest hotel in Helsinki, I don't know why I had such trouble with that word, and traveled in the most expensive class on his train in Russia, even though he didn't have much money. There are numerous other reasons to believe Oswald was a false defector, but the strongest is the routing of his CIA files. His files were routed to the Office of Security, the office that spied on spies, instead of the Soviet Russia division, which is where his files would have gone if he was being watched as a threat. When legendary CIA counterintelligence officer Pete Bagley was shown Oswald's files, he concluded that Oswald had been used as bait for a KGB mole hunt within the CIA. This is one of the biggest smoking guns to show Oswald's CIA ties. 7. Did Oswald work with Guy Bannister in New Orleans? Yes, there are 10 witnesses who say Oswald worked with Guy Bannister in New Orleans when he was handing out fair play for Cuba Committee materials. Also, Oswald told Dean Andrews he was paying $25 per day to hand out the flyers. Guy Bannister's entire career with the FBI was focused on infiltrating leftist groups. It appears that Oswald was working with Bannister to do just that. Given that Oswald was publicly a leftist/Marxist and Bannister was a right-wing anti-communist, this revelation significantly undermines Oswald's motive of allegedly killing Kennedy and shows that he was, once again, working with intelligence as an asset. 8. Was Jim Garrison correct that Clay Shaw was a conspirator to kill JFK? Not really. Jim Garrison's theory of the case that he ultimately presented when he charged Clay Shaw with conspiracy to kill President Kennedy was that Lee Harvey Oswald was seen at a party at David Ferry's house. Who David Ferry? That is a guy we've spoken about multiple times on Already Dead. That dude glows. He is a weird dude. Look him up. You guys should just Google him. You will get a kick out of it. He was a very, very odd fella. But yeah, he was, if I remember correctly, I believe Barry Seal, Oswald, and I think some other people were part of his Civil Air Patrol group when they were younger. So they were like essentially like teenage boys, if I recall correctly. This guy was also into like hypnotism and like a lot of weird stuff, a lot of weird things with the story. I think, what's his name? William Ramsey has covered him fairly well. So I know at the very least, if you could go to his podcast, probably type in David Ferry or something, and you might be able to find a podcast on it. I know he covered it, I think, for a few episodes. I got a lot out of that. There are a few reasons that this theory is not persuasive to me. I think I may have talking with Ferry and Shaw about killing President Kennedy in a crossfire. According to Garrison, this was all overheard by a star witness, Perry Russo, who was there at the party. There are a few reasons that this theory is not persuasive to me. First, the allegation made by Russo about this conversation at Ferry's party was too vague to be actionable. Even if Russo really did overhear what he says he did, all he heard is three guys talking vaguely about shooting Kennedy and their potential alibis. Second, Russo said Oswald had a beard at the time, but Oswald is not known to have had a beard. Third, the basic theory of the conspiracy puts Oswald as one of multiple shooters. This is not consistent with the evidence we've studied, which casts significant doubt on the idea that Oswald could have been on the 6th floor at the time the shots were fired. Fourth, Garrison's tactics when it came to Perry Russo were questionable. There is big evidentiary issue when it comes to when exactly Russo relayed his story of the guilt conversation between Ferry, Shaw, and Oswald. It appears that Garrison's investigators may have obtained Russo's statement about that conversation for the first time when Russo was on sodium pentothal. The details of this are disputed. Ultimately, Garrison uncovered valuable information in the case that researchers still reference today, but his primary conclusion that Shaw, Ferry, and Oswald or the masterminds of the assassination does not hold up in my view. 9. What is the point of Oswald going to Mexico City? Assuming that Oswald did go to Mexico City, which is questionable because there are 5 witnesses who put him in Texas at the same time. The surface level point of his visit was for Oswald to obtain a travel visa to the Soviet Union through Cuba. But if Oswald wanted to go to the USSR, he already had the ability to do that with his existing visa. He just couldn't go to Cuba first without a Cuban in-transit travel visa. The Mexico City saga is further shrouded in mystery because there should have been surveillance photos of Oswald when he visited the Soviet and Cuban consulates and audio recordings from inside those buildings. But the CIA, through David Atlee Phillips, lied about the surveillance to the HSCA. This was proven with the HSCA's Lopez report. It appears that the reason the CIA didn't want to provide the photos or audio of Oswald is because these pieces of evidence would have made it clear that Oswald was impersonated at the Soviet embassy at least. This is what Edgar Hoover told President Johnson in a phone call the day after the assassination. President Johnson then used what Hoover told him about a little incident in Mexico City to lead Senator Richard Russell and Chief Justice Earl Warren to believe that Oswald met with the Soviets in Mexico City and that the Soviets may have ultimately been behind the assassination. LBJ needed Russell and Warren to serve their country by working on his presidential commission to ensure a finding of conspiracy with the Soviets did not happen because it would lead to a nuclear war. Curiously, Johnson did not mention the headline of what Hoover told him to Russell or Warren, that it wasn't really Oswald, the Soviet Union. It was an imposter. All right, 10 was Oswald impersonated? Yes, there are at least 27 occasions where the official record shows that Oswald is in one place, but there are FBI reports that show that he was seen somewhere else. These are not merely cases of mistaken identity where someone looked like Oswald. There are instances where someone looked like Oswald and said that the man gave information that confirms he was impersonating Oswald. For example, at a car dealership in Dallas a few weeks before the assassination, a man who claimed to be Oswald was told he would need to pass a credit check for a car, to which he was responded, "Maybe I should go back to Russia to get a car." Some of the highlights of Oswald being impersonated include Stripling Junior High School, where Oswald was supposed to be at Beauregard. So this is in junior high. Palmer McBride's story of working with Oswald at Pfister's dental lab when he was supposed to be in Japan at the time. The details of Oswald's squadron, course number, and military occupational specialty listed in Folsom Exhibit 1 not matching with superior officer Daniel Powers read into the record to the Warren Commission. The Bolton Ford incident where a man named Oswald tried to buy trucks for friends of Democratic Cuba. J. Edgar Hoover noting in a memo that Oswald was being impersonated while he was in the USSR. Oswald trying to buy weapons from Fidel Castro's gunrunner, Robert McCown. Oswald running down the hill out of the back of the Texas School Book Depository building and entering a green light Nash Rambler, which was seen by 5 witnesses. Even if some of the 27 instances are not credible, it only takes a couple to completely undermine the idea that Oswald was a lone nut. Yeah, this one is probably one of the more bizarre ones when it comes to that, because I remember when I had him on, we talked about this, and it almost slightly implies that there's like a generational thing here or something, or that these are people they got to from an early age, as if this was like they had doppelgangers in place, and this was a thing that was decades in the making, essentially. Not saying specifically like JFK, but almost as if like part of spycraft at this time was having multiple people, or I mean, and whether you fudged paperwork later or if it was from birth, I don't know. Either way, it's fishy. You're like, how are you doing this? Because if I recall correctly, I believe there were actually 2 Oswalds. There literally was another Oswald that they got swapped with a bunch, and then obviously all the different doppelgangers here, or not even doppelgangers, people claiming to be him or whatever. It's just bizarre. It just implies what the fuck is going on here, especially the aspect of there being an other existing Oswald somewhere. Is like, what I mean, obviously that could just be a happenstance, but I wish I could remember the details of our conversation, because there was more to it that made me think, like, what the fuck, are they planning these things like generationally or decades in advance? And I don't mean plan specifics, but I mean just more setting the groundwork so they have their tools in place for whatever given thing they need to do. So because that was weird. Maybe that's a little bit much, but it did seem to imply that could be a possibility. So And there's been other conspiracies, none that come to mind off the top of my head, that there's credence to that idea that the similar things have happened. All right, in conclusion, I call on President Trump to follow through with his promise to declassify the remaining JFK records and to create a commission to review the current state of the case, given all the information now available. Hit me up, real Donald Trump. I'm happy to serve. So yeah, that's our buddy Matt Crompton. That was a good thread. Let me pop in with you guys. See what you guys have to say. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. That's what we're getting a lot of here. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I love you all. All right, let's do one more thread, and then we'll get into the Dutroux stuff. All right, I did have a couple for you guys. I did have a. Oh crap! I had another one. I think I accidentally exited. All right, we have two to go through. One thread and one tweet. So let's but they're both connected and they're both from old Richard. Shit. What the fuck? I just realized something's wrong. It's not what damn it. Oh, here we go. Sorry, my bad. Talking to myself a little bit. All right, let's bring this up. All right, here we go. All right, yesterday this is a little bit expanding on our talk from yesterday, although I feel like we can, if you didn't see yesterday's show, you should be able to enjoy this in isolation just fine. This is within this thread that we went yesterday, there's another thread that I wanted to look into, because we did a thread yesterday, kind of talked about how Andy Strassmeyer, who was a key figure in the Oklahoma City bombing, is very sketchy, very much glows, and the theory that he's kind of proffering, the idea out there is that someone who was essentially Strassmeyer's, point of contact in like this PatCon op, may have gotten essentially compromised by some sort of other op, and essentially swapped out information. So thread on who might have handled Strassmeyer into position to act as a provocateur and also compromise an ongoing FBI operation to ensure the FBI would cover up the hijackers' activities. All right, so here is the other thread. All right, though this starts off, which was something from, 5 days ago. So I want to say something about Roger Charles. When he worked on the McVeigh defense team, he quickly found out that there was a cover-up when Stephen Jones, who was, was Timothy McVeigh's lawyer, defense attorney, would not subpoena Linda Cipriani, who was CIA, to testify about Strassmeyer. And then this guy, Stuart Wexler, said, what was Cipriani prepared to say? Cipriani was tasked with turning over an internal CIA report on Andy Strassmeyer. Here's a document about that being turned over to Beth Wilkinson, the prosecutor. Note her name is spelled wrong. All right, well, we're not going to read the article. Well, actually, fuck. All right, actually, as part of the investigation in the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Supervisory Special Agent Robert A. Blacksmith, Federal Bureau of Investigation, National Security Division, FBI HQ, was asked to query various federal government law enforcement intelligence agencies to determine if Andreas Karl Strassmeyer was ever a cooperating witness or confidential force. On 2/6/97, Linda Cipriani, which he mentioned was spelled wrong, it's spelled Cipriani here, CIA, Office of General Counsel, telephone number, whatever, advised that she had been in direct contact with Assistant United States Attorney Beth Wilkinson, the OKBOMB task force in Denver, Colorado. Miss Cipriani advised that she has provided the results to AUSA Wilkinson concerning her agency's records check to determine if Strassmeyer, white male, date of birth 5/17/59, had ever worked with or been affiliated with her agency. All right, now, I think Strassmeyer is no, that's right. Okay, well, this is a common. I think the point he mentioned her name being spelled wrong. This is a common. It seems like a tactic. Obviously, it could just be them being retarded or fucking shit up. Is that there will be lots of misspelled names. So I don't know if the reasoning is because then when someone FOIAs something, then you go, oh shit, Oh, you said Cipriani. Oh, someone misspelled it and put Cipriani. Oopsies. So stuff like that. So that they can pull those up. I think the same thing. I want to say that because I saw Strassmeyer's name and I thought I could have swore that it happened with him as well. But there were other characters in the Oklahoma City bombing that had similar things where names were spelled wrong and that caused problems later where they're like, oh, we weren't able to find these files or that because they were spelled wrong. So it almost seems like it's on purpose, although it's one of those things you can't really prove. But all right. Roger had two CIA sources. One, a senior high-level official in the CIA who had read the report and said that Strassmeyer was identified as a German government asset whose information was being shared with the FBI. Roger said he would need to get her on the stand under oath to say what is in that report, as my sources have told me what is in it. Jones said, "Oh, the judge wouldn't like that." So to be clear, this document I read earlier was kind of saying that there was a report or we're going to report or something along those lines. So that is not the report, I don't believe. All right. So let's scroll back down. Sorry. All right. Roger said that he would need to get on the stand under oath to say what is in that report, as my sources have told me what is in it. Jones said, "Oh, the judge wouldn't like that." The 302 doesn't say what is in the report, and the Jones team also wasn't allowed to look at it, which is insane. They should have got it in discovery. When Rogers worked at the Pentagon, he developed a great deal of sources. He knew a lot of CIA people. I believe his source. In addition, when Jesse Trento sued the CIA for OKBOMB documents, they produced 52 documents in a Vaughn Index which describes in general terms what the doc is about, all of them withheld for national security. We believe at least two of these docs are about Strassmeyer. Here, Jesse talks about it from a 2010 interview shortly after the FBI pulled the grave damage to national security argument to withhold them. Trento, well, I sued them, and I said I want those documents, and the judge, of course, they came in, and it's the very first time anyone in my Freedom of Information suits has ever asserted national security and the exemption of producing. And that's like, it's a rock that you can't get around. Once the government throws up national security, and they did more than that. They said to release these documents would pose a grave threat to the security of the United States of America. And the judge's hands are tied at that point. It's like a shield that he can't go behind. But what he did, and I think he did this intentionally, is he wrote his opinion to let me know and the public know that there was a foreign connection to the Oklahoma City bombing. And he goes through it and he discusses the CIA's assistance in helping prosecute Tim McVeigh and Terry Nichols. And he talks about the contacts with foreign informants, foreign witnesses. He paints a very clear picture that there was foreign involvement, and of course there has to be because the CIA is a foreign intelligence agency. By law, it cannot operate within the borders of the United States unless there's a foreign element here. This is Scott. Okay, so this is between Horton and Trento. So Scott Horton, which, by the way, he just had Provoked come out. So go check that out if you haven't seen him on his podcast tour. But yes, go get his book on the Russian-Ukraine conflict and how it actually was provoked. All right, Horton. So to paraphrase, basically the judge is telling you, we can't give you these documents about the CIA's involvement with foreign informants that knew something about the Oklahoma City bombing. That's basically the way he's saying it to you. Trento, yes. He says, but I want you to know they were there. Horton, well, now, do you have any real indication as to what he's talking about? If this is perhaps, has to do with Andreas Strassmeyer, or whether this is, along the lines of Jane Davis and the American Enterprise Institute and trying to pin it on Middle Easterners. Trento, I think it was Strassmeyer, a German national and a former army officer and counter-terrorist person from the Republic of Germany. That's my opinion. Of course he doesn't say who, but it's my feeling that's the person. All right, Andreas Strassmeyer reached out to Jesse after Jesse started getting all these positive rulings. He wanted to know what was in those documents about him. Jesse prepared a privacy waiver for him to sign. He said, I have nothing to hide. Of course, I'll sign it. He didn't sign it. I'm not reading all that stuff there. Why not sign when he's prepared it for you? All you got to do is sign and send it back, and then you'll be exonerated. Unless, of course, those documents say things he didn't want getting out, which, of course, they do. This endnote from Rogers' book refers to a second and bigger source, the senior CIA official whose info came through in 2006. Prior to that, he had someone else telling him about Strassmeyer, saying he needs to look at that CIA OIG report on him. All right, what is this? This is an endnote from Rogers' book. Let me read this. Okay. Strassmeyer's open-ended multiple-entry visa obtained by Gumbel. The Justice Department would later misrepresent his entries into the United States, saying he traveled each time on single-entry tourist visas. Kirk Lyons disclosed a Petruski story about the dead Soviet spy in email, December 1st, 2010. Lyons and Petruski may very well have worked for the CIA. Lyons also said Petruski may have very well worked for the CIA. Interview from Gumbel. On Strassmeyer as a possible government agent, a retired senior CIA official told Charles in 2006 that in 1995 or 1996 he reviewed a report by the CIA Inspector General in the course of his official duties and remembered seeing a mention of Strassmeyer as a government or German government asset whose information was shared with the FBI. All right. It would also explain how NRO spy satellites were used in Elohim City on April 19th. The only way you can do that is if you've got a foreign person there, and it would take a great deal of pull to retarget a KH-11 Kennan satellite from its target over China to focus on U.S. And then there's stuff on the satellites, the spy satellite. I'm not going to read all that. All right, two more. You guys can look into that, find this thread on your own. You can go into the spy satellite, which that is like that is a big thing frequently brought up. That is like the only time this one specific spy satellite was used was to monitor Elohim City. I think it's the only time it's been used like domestically or something like that, and it's required a super duper high level clearance. It's my understanding, essentially to the level of like borderline, like presidential borderline level, something along that. And yet still we don't really know who did it or why. And so it's one of those weird little factoids about the Oklahoma City bombing. For what's worth, I think the Kennan was looking for a Ryder truck. So the idea is that the satellite was used to find the Ryder truck, because the theory is they swapped it. All right, the second truck, the smaller one, which had the transponder on it, and the feds were trying to track in the failed sting operation the night before. Problem was McVeigh's 20-foot truck didn't have any transponder on it. So they're looking for this truck. It doesn't have GPS on it. It's got a useless FM transmitter. Where you need to be within 100 feet of the thing to be able to know that it's in range. They probably were going to use this to know when the truck arrived downtown. All right, that's the end of that thread. Let's check in with the chat, check in with you guys, and then we'll get into one more thing real quick before we move on. I did want to share this. All right. And yet they did not interview Indra Strassmeyer, nor Dennis Mahon, nor Mark Thomas, nor Chevy Keogh. They did interview McVeigh's second grade teacher. This is how the FBI works. They do this so they can say we left no stone unturned. Meanwhile, they own the quarry. This is once again from my buddy Richard at OKC_facts. This is just one single tweet. Oh, actually, shit. Never mind. It's a whole thread. Actually, never mind. We'll come back to this one. For some reason, I thought this one was just a single tweet when I put it in here. We'll come back to this one. This one might deserve its own one. I thought it was just a singular little one. But this points out some 10,000 FBI agents conducting the most sweeping criminal investigation in American history, produced 25,000 witness interviews, 100,000 pieces of tangible evidence, including 7,000 pounds of physical evidence, 350 audio cassettes, 500 video cassettes, 30,000 photographs, and 160,000 documents, even the keys to the Ryder truck, the truck that carried a weapon of mass destruction, and blah, blah, blah. Point being is this is emphasizing all the stuff they put together, how it's like, oh, we left no stone unturned, we did everything, we interviewed McVeigh's second grade teacher, but they didn't interview, as he said here, they interviewed Indra Strassmeyer, Dennis Mahon, Mark Thomas, Chevy Keogh, all people that you would really want to interview, which, I mean, those last three you probably may not know. I'm not going to go into them now, maybe at a later time. I'm sure we'll cover Oklahoma City bombing threads again some other time, particularly probably from Richard. But you guys definitely know who Andreas Strassmeyer is by now. And this guy was not interviewed. If anything, he was almost borderline ushered out of the state for safety. All right, let's check in with the chat, see what you guys are up to. All right. Thanks, everyone's saying Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. What's up, fellas? Thanksgiving. Yep, just everyone saying Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. All right, guys, let's do the Dutroux affair piece. Let's get into that, and then I'll let you guys go so we can all get back to our Thanksgivings. All right, this is the Dutroux piece the other day. Just reiterate what this is. This is Beyond the Dutroux Affair, The Reality of Protected Child Abuse and Snuff Networks. This is written by Joel Vander Rijden. And we read the little bit at the beginning yesterday. We went into kind of notes and quotes and just stuff kind of saying how they obtain this information and just other little gee whiz stuff. I would recommend people checking out. There's useful information in that. We also kind of how set up how these things began. And here we are now at failure catch Dutroux. In the following months and years, details came out about the failure of the police and BOB to catch Dutroux in an earlier stage. Although usually not presented in such a way, most of these rather odd failures can be ascribed to BOB officer Rene Michaud. As head of Operation Othello, a surveillance operation against Dutroux from August 10, 1995 to January 1996, he practically knew everything there was to know about this already convicted violent PDF. Keep in mind, I'm changing words here. You guys know what I meant there. From all sides, evidence was presented to him that Dutroux not only kidnapped Julie and Melissa, but also Anne and Yif. However, Michaud ignored evidence presented by such informants as Claude Theroux, to whom Dutroux had mentioned how to kidnap young girls and how much you could get for them. Dutroux's mother, his own mother, who had gathered evidence from her son's neighbors that he was likely involved in the kidnappings, and police officer Christian Dubois, who early on was on the trail of the gang of Nihol, which would immediately have led to Dutroux. In between all these reports, the video cameras aimed at Dutroux's Marcinelle home as part of Operation Othello failed to register Dutroux bringing in Anne and Yef on August 22nd. Norwood Michaud's team noticed Yef's, I don't know how the fuck you say that word. Yef, I don't know. Failed escape attempt on August 25th, in which she briefly climbed out the bathroom window to shout for help. Anne and Yef were taken out of the house in September and murdered. When finally forced to search Dutroux Marcinelle's home for reasons not related to the kidnapping, Michaud decided to ignore the voices of two young girls, seemingly not even trying to get a response from them. He also didn't think Dutroux's odd L-shaped basement, with one wall much newer than all the others, was reason enough to tear it down. Nor did he recognize the significance of such items as hoo-ha cream, a speculum, chains, and a videotape with the name of a program on it dealing with missing children. Two other videos which would have shown Dutroux working on his basement and him grape 14-year-old were returned to Dutroux's wife, apparently without having been reviewed by the team. This failure of properly searching Dutroux's home apparently led to the death of Julie and Melissa, who were believed to have died from starvation in Dutroux's basement, because this is while he was detained. It also led to the kidnapping of Sabine and Letitia after Dutroux got out of jail in March 1996. In August 1996, after Dutroux had been arrested on suspicions that he had kidnapped Letitia, Michaud led another 3-hour search in Dutroux's Marcinelle home, where at that moment Sabine and Letitia were located. Needless to say, Michaud not only failed to find the girls, which could possibly have led to the release of Dutroux, he also hadn't noticed the letters Sabine had hidden under Dutroux's carpet. Luckily, the location of the girls would be pointed out by Dutroux 48 hours later, even if it had become clear to him that there was no way out this time, especially not with his lackey Michel Lavière spilling the beans. These failures of Michaud led to strong criticism from the parents of Anne Marchel, who went to inspect Dutroux's basement themselves. The parents of Melissa Rousseau filed an official complaint against him. When Boulay criticized Michaud in 2004 over his failure to even find Sabine's letters and seemingly implied this might not have been intentional. What the fuck? You guys hear that cat? Let me guys know if you hear that. I don't know what. One of these cats is all worked up. All right, I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that, if you guys could hear that. All right, back to this. The parents of Melissa Rousseau filed an official complaint against him. When Boulay criticized Michaud in 2004 over his failure to even find Sabine letters and seemingly implied this might not have been unintentional, Michaud could only react by calling Boulay a liar and saying that he sure wouldn't have found Letitia under the carpet. Oh yeah, we hear it. We have someone. Pistolero says Toad is currently streaming. Should we do something? Yeah, no, you guys stay here. I mean, you can tell Toad I said hi if you want to pop in for a second. That'd be nice. Yeah, you should have fucking known better than stream when I'm streaming, piece of shit. All right. Anyway, sorry. He sure wouldn't have found. These intellectual replies were soon followed by threats to sue for libel. Michaud's extreme incompetence was rewarded with a new position as a local police commissioner. Following is a brief recap of Dutroux's life and how extraordinarily incompetent the judiciary had to be to allow him to go on kidnapping girls. These are bullet points. Dutroux had a long history of physically abusing women. Convicted in November 1988 for kidnapping, photographing, torturing, and rape 5 girls between the age of 11 and 19. Also convicted for torturing an older woman by putting a razor in her hoo-ha. He tried to force her into giving him money. In April 1992, PSC Minister of Justice Melchior Wathelet approved Dutroux's release from prison. Although it is normal in Belgium to be released after a third of the sentence has been served out, many in the system who worked with Dutroux did not agree with his decision. Dutroux was known to them as a manipulative psychopath without any regrets for his crimes. In fact, he never even admitted to them. Interestingly, Wathelet would be accused in the X dossiers of being a violent child abuser himself, together with some of his known protégés and associates. After his release, Dutroux received an unusually large amount of sleeping pills and sedatives from his doctor, which he would later use to quiet the girls he abducted. In his house in Marcinelle near Charleroi, man, they have some really weird words, where he lived most of the time, Dutroux began constructing a concealed dungeon in the basement. In early 1993, the unemployed small-time criminal Claude Theroux, who rented one of Dutroux's homes, was hired by Dutroux as a handyman to install water drains between one of his newly bought houses. Keep in mind, I don't even remember what Dutroux was supposed to have been. I don't know if he's a handyman or I can't remember what he fucking supposedly did. Or it was electrician or something, and he had like multiple houses. So this is one of the things that's fishy about him. You're like, where is all this money coming from? Anyways, although Theroux thought this was a bit unusual, he didn't mind doing it. But a few days into the job, 2 girls walked past the house they were working on, prompting Dutroux to remark to the Theroux, if you want to kidnap them, you'll make 150,000 francs, which is about 4,000 euros, which I don't even know why I read about 4,000 euros, because that doesn't help us at all, because we're in America. Grab them from behind, put a sedative drug in the nose, put them into the car, and lock the doors. Dutroux went on to explain how he had plans to abduct girls, lock them in his basement, and transport them abroad. Theroux, an occasional police informant, went to the police. As a result, Dutroux's houses were searched some months later in December, the official reason being that he was suspected of a car theft. The police officers noticed Dutroux's modified basement but did not find any girls. His house was searched again in June 1994, and it appeared to the officers that he had stopped working on the basement. In June 1995, Dutroux was sued for having illegally widened an opening to his basement in an effort to put in a venting tube. Theroux went back to the police after Julie and Melissa had disappeared to remind them of Dutroux's ideas about kidnapping girls and the modifications to his basement. The police got back to Theroux a few days later and asked him if he had some more solid evidence, apparently needed if the house of this known PDF was to be searched. On June 24th, 1995, examining magistrate Martin Dutroux, different Dutroux, Dutroux, it's spelled differently, became head of the Julie and Melissa cell tasked with finding the missing girls. Unfortunately for the girls, Dutroux left for vacation in Italy within days of being assigned to this post and would not return until August 9th. No other permanent investigating judge was appointed in her place, which significantly impacted the efficiency of the entire investigation. Dutroux would never seriously get involved with the BOB operation that was to monitor Dutroux's daily activities. The magistrate also never tried to arrange a phone tap, a search warrant, or approval for a financial investigation. On August 10th, 1995, a group of BOB officers began monitoring Dutroux's movements under the code name Operation Othello. A time-lapse video camera was used less than 2% of the total observation period, and operations were suspended at 10 o'clock each evening. The operation was so ineffective that on August 22nd, Dutroux was able to kidnap Anne and Yef and lock them up in his house completely unnoticed. On August 25th, Yef managed to grab her clothes, crawl out of the bathroom window, and shout for help. Although she was pulled back in by Dutroux within seconds, the observers never noticed anything. A few weeks later, the girls were taken out of the house again, unnoticed, and murdered. Dutroux was also able to kidnap three teenagers he suspected of having double-crossed him and lock them up in his house without any cameras or observers noticing anything. In addition, Dutroux had murdered Bernard Weinstein during the period that he was under observation. On September 4th, 1995, Dutroux's mother, who advised against the 1992 release of her son, anonymously informed Rene Michaud, investigative head of Operation Othello, that the neighbors of Dutroux were very suspicious about his activities. Windows were blacked out, Dutroux was always making noise in the basement, the garden was filled with used car tires, and 2 girls of 16 or 18 years old had recently been seen in his garden. These girls had never been observed during daylight. This information somehow didn't make it to the investigating team that was working on the case of Anne and Yef, who were 17 and 19 years old. On December 6, 1995, Dutroux was arrested for having been involved in stealing a truck and kidnapping and torturing 3 teenagers he suspected of having re-stolen the vehicle. One of the teenagers escaped and informed the police. Under the leadership of Gendarme Officer Rene Michaud, Dutroux's homes were searched on December 13 and again on December 19th. 1 or more children were heard crying by Michaud and the locksmith. This person did not know anything about Dutroux being a suspect in the kidnapping of girls, accompanying him. They went to look in the basement, which clearly had a whole section which had recently been modified, but couldn't find anything, leading Michaud to conclude that the voices must have come from outside. The parents of Julie Lejeune, one of the children that was locked up at the time, would later prove that normal communication was possible with someone locked up in one of the cells. Additionally, during the December 13 search of Dutroux's basement, Michaud found the hoo-ha cream, the chloroform, and the speculum that we mentioned earlier, and chains, which to him were no cause for alarm. Videos were confiscated which showed Dutroux working in his basement and graping a number of unknown girls. On one of the tapes, the next Perdue de Vue mark was written, a reference to the TV program Lost from Sight, which dealt with missing children and on which Julie and Melissa had also featured. Michaud and team never watched the tapes and gave them back to Dutroux's wife, Michelle Martin. In the afternoon of December 13th, after the disastrous search in Dutroux's Marcinelle home, Michaud met with police officer Christian Dubois. Both had been working on a recent phenomenon involving occupants of white Mercedeses following and photographing schoolgirls. On this occasion, Dubois informed Michaud that he had an informant who had stated that the white Mercedes belonged to a PDF network centered around a company called A-Chat Services Commerces, ASCO, not to be confused with X1's Abuse and Snuff Factory, which we haven't gotten into yet, located in the Brussels suburbs. According to the informant, the occupant of the white Mercedes were putting together catalogs of pictures of children. Their clients could pick one of these kids, which would then be kidnapped, locked up in Belgium for a while, and then exported to Eastern Europe or Thailand. The price for each child would be about 7,500 euros. During their conversation, Michel told Dubois about Dutroux. Dubois recalled, I remember that Michaud told me that Dutroux went to countries in Eastern Europe. The sums he mentioned for the kidnappings were similar to those given to me by my informant. Even today, this still keeps me awake at night. I feel responsible. Afterwards, in 1996, I looked into Dutroux. You just felt it. This was the man we were looking for. Michaud took no action, and the Veer-Wilgen Commission would later scratch its head. Why? So this Dubois guy, the informant, told him, okay, all right. Wild. All right, so he got this information and didn't do anything about it. All right. Michaud took no action and would later scratch his head. Why? ASCO turned out to be a highly interesting company. It was incorporated on July 2nd, 1991, primarily by Jean-Louis Delamotte, a friend and regular business partner of Michel Nihoul. Nihoul, Bernard Weinstein, Michel Levier, and Michel Martin, not Dutroux, had all been spotted on a regular basis in the immediate surroundings of the company. People in the neighborhood had also noted that Nihoul was often surrounded by young Negro girls and had the impression that these girls were on transit. 5 mattresses and some baby milk were found inside the company's headquarters after it had gone bankrupt in 1994. Delamotte's company Saparato, registered at the same address, owned 5 white Mercedes, all with French license plates, as had been reported. Delamotte would later also be pointed out as a thug who intimidated one of the ex-witnesses, including the person who had initially looked after this witness. On March 20th, 1996, Dutroux was released unusually early on humanitarian reasons. His wife was about to have a baby. Operation Othello, the program that was monitoring Dutroux's movement, had been shut down in January because Dutroux was in jail. The operation was not revived after his release. In August 1996, Dutroux was finally caught by Michel Brûlé and Jean-Marc Connerat. Sabine, one of 2 girls locked in the basement, had hidden letters under Dutroux's carpet. Michaud failed to find them, for which he would be criticized by Michel Brûlé in 2004. Even though more than 10 years have passed since Dutroux was arrested on suspicions of having kidnapped Letitia, largely because of Michaud, it is still somewhat of a mystery how many videos were confiscated in late 1995 and in August 1996. Initial reports after Dutroux's arrest stated that the Justice Department was in the possession of more than 300 videos. Within several weeks, this number was up to 5,000 videos. Reports that Dutroux's accomplices, including a number of high-level officials, could be seen on these tapes also began to appear. In the end, it seems to have been a huge exaggeration. Even the exact amount of videos remains a bit of mystery. Most estimates today are below 100, and only a portion of these videos appear to have shown Dutroux abusing young girls. All right, I'm debating whether I want to we'll come back to this later. Nihul, I don't think we've hardly mentioned Nihul, or really, I mean, we've mentioned him, in passing here and there. But it's my understanding from this case, and we'll get into this next time, this Nihul fella is essentially it says right here, Michel Nihul, Dutroux's apparent link to the upper echelons of the network, found guilty by the jury before it was overruled by the presiding judges. Nihul is the ultimate example of an unscrupulous villain, but for some reason he has enjoyed the protection of many magistrates and media outlets. So this is essentially the Epstein of this case, is the way that I like to frame it. He seems to be one of the point man, or a point man, whereas Dutroux is kind of like the working man of the group here. He is the guy abducting people, whereas Nihul is more of a management spot. So I know people usually think of this as the Dutroux affair or the Beast of Belgium being Dutroux, and don't get me wrong, dude was fucked up. Dutroux is a fucking monster. But honestly, the focus should be on Nihul, which we will get into this. I'm sure obviously it'll bring up at some point. Like you saw, it was found guilty by the jury before it was overruled by the presiding judges. If I recall correctly, he got something ridiculous like time served or like 6 months or a year or something ridiculous when he had a ton of stuff. And but Dutroux got a decent amount of time. I forget. Point being is Nihul seemed to essentially slide out of this one, whereas Dutroux is the one who got the focus where it should have been the other way around. I mean, don't get me wrong; they both should have gotten the thrown in the cage and thrown away the key. But if there was one of the two, it really was Nihul who was the more fucked character, I guess you could say, the more important whale to take down. But yeah, all right, let's check in with the chat and we'll get on out of here. All right, I was the only viewer on Toad's stream. I commented that Toad was streaming. They should have come, but he should come watch, and then I left. Poor Toad. All right, guys, let's get out of here. I'm keeping this one a little bit shorter today because it is Thanksgiving. So my kids are home for the week, and I'm just chilling with them. They're still sleeping. At least one of them is. So, go spend some time with family. I just want to pop in with you guys. It was early anyways. No one was really up around the house. So figured I'd knock out another stream with you guys. I'll be doing probably another one roughly around the same time tomorrow. So pop in. We'll continue our coverage of the Dutroux affair, and then whatever the sorted stuff. Probably another OKC thread. Also, don't forget, you guys can suggest things for me to cover as we did in this. We covered the Drake thing. But yeah, the ways you can do this, Facebook or Twitter is probably the best way. Just tag me in things on there, and you don't even have to say for the show. I'll know if it's something that seems appropriate for the show. I'll save it. I'll add it to my folder, my bookmark folder for this show. But yeah, so but if you guys want to support this, you guys can do that over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2. That gives you the early access to the episodes from the No Way Jose stuff, my normal No Way Jose episodes that get paywalled. And then they also allows you to be a talking head on the streams with me and Austin on Already Dead during a call-in portion of the show. You can do a video chat there. And then the highest level is my patrons. I read them off every episode. And my co-host on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad. Also at AbrogateDs, at ZOVERACK, at _Infinite Zeal. Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. You can follow him at Biblical Anarchy. He just had Scott Horton on, by the way. Then Tim Tuttle at Jolly on Klebold. Then Will Bell with delicious blueberry rabbit eye wine, and then big fan of the show at Real Josh Elliott, and then Torin May as well. I appreciate you guys, appreciate the support, appreciate you helping me do what I do. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Tower Gang Jose, which these will be streaming there now, so all the more reason to follow me there. And also to tag me in things if there's stuff you want me to bring up on the show, I will gladly do so. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, guys. I will try to get the audio podcast stuff fixed here soon. Sorry about that for those who dig that. It is what it is. But yeah, that's it, guys. Love you all. Deuces.